we know that there's people with an entrepreneurial spirit like yourselves, and we know there's an opportunity in the food industry in some way, shape, or form for people to make money, both at the grand scale and also at the small scale. And so our purpose today is to start at that small scale. And the primary basis for our knowledge is going to center around the Michigan Cottage Food Law, which was a law, and you'll learn more about this, a law that's been most recently enacted, that allows folks at up to a certain threshold to produce certain kinds of food products for direct sale. You can't sell to Meijer, you can't sell to a restaurant, but you can sell directly to the customer. So that's where we're going to start. If you came today because you think that you want to buy a hot dog wagon and drive it around downtown and sell hot dogs, or you want to go to a festival this summer and sell your grandmother's taco recipe, we're not going to get into those kinds of specifics on the food end, but we certainly can still talk about that within the construct of the business end, and it can be a starting point. So just so that everybody is clear, out of that whole range of possible food options, we're starting at really at the very basic beginning starting point. I'm going to introduce my colleague Joyce McGarry. Joyce is an extension educator with Ingham MSU Extension, and she primarily works with food safety, but she's also an expert in the Michigan Cottage Food Law. And I also have an intern this summer. Soumya Sarapur is here. And by the nature of some of her previous experiences with Michigan Department of Agriculture, she's also going to be assisting Joyce, and they have a brief presentation, and then we've saved lots of time for you to ask questions. So, all set? Anything that somebody really needs to know about before we get started? Are we pretty clear about what we're going to try to do tonight? Great.
Thank you, Randy. Thank you. I have been very fortunate because when we work in food safety, in our food and nutrition programs, it's usually in your home and what to do in your kitchen. So we've been able to just extend those same type of principles into the cottage food law presentations that we've been doing around the state. So we have a team of educators that have been very busy doing the cottage food law, and in fact soon will be an online course that Michigan Department of Agriculture has given us a grant to do, and I unfortunately do not have the website yet. I was hoping to get it tonight. It's going to be a certification program, so at the end of that, you can print off a certificate, and if you're interested in doing that, then you can present that at your booth or at the farmers markets, wherever you're going to set up your stand to sell your foods. Gives you just a little more edge over maybe someone who has not taken the online food safety course. So this is a brief introduction to what that online course will be like. There's also information in your folders that I've given you on the cottage food law, some frequently asked questions, but Soumya will also answer questions at the end of this, because she knows a lot about how the law was started and why it was developed the way it was. What exactly is cottage food? That's a little bit vague. I don't know how they came up with the name, but that's what they're calling it. It started back in July 2010 is when it first was signed into law. Non-potentially hazardous foods. Not some term that you hear very often, but in the restaurant business, that's pretty common. But it can be manufactured for direct sale, as Randy said. It has to be sold directly to the customer, to your consumer. But the nice part is it can be done in your own kitchen. And your kitchen does not have to be one that is licensed, which seems to be quite a challenge for a lot of people who want to go into the food business. Around the state, there's very few licensed kitchens that are available for people just to come in and use at their own leisure and their own expense. Sometimes there's a charge for it, sometimes they just don't allow others in. So this gives you a lot more flexibility in your own kitchen. It has to be your single family residence. So it cannot be a summer home, it can't be a trailer, it has to be a single family residence. Are you limited in the amount of money you can make? Do you know how much you can make in the cottage food law? You are limited in how much you can make. $15,000, which is really not too bad. Wisconsin has a similar law, but they have more options in their food, but you're only allowed to make $7,000 in Wisconsin. So they came up with a larger amount for Michigan. Yeah, it is. Cottage Food Law, 2010. It It allows you to manufacture and store certain foods. We're gonna go into it, it's also written down in a lot of your information because it does not apply to all foods, only certain foods. Check with your local zoning and other laws if you want to do the hot dog stand or any other potentially hazardous foods. Foods that can be produced at home. And we can go over this, and there's a lot of detail, a lot of specifics if you have questions on this, because jams and jellies, they have to be the kind that are not the butters, not the marmalades. It has to be the jams and jellies from fruit and pectin and sugar. They have to be processed. And I might as well tell you now, I didn't pass this out, I just thought that anyone who would be interested, I thought maybe throughout the summer I do a lot of home preservation. So if you're interested in doing jams and jellies and have not done it before or just want a refresher course on how to do it, we are offering one coming up at our Lansing office on Jolly and Cedar. So you can take that flyer if you'd like. We do a lot of food preservation throughout the summer. Water bath, pressure canning, and freezing. So this happens to be our jams and jellies. So if you're interested in doing that, it's a great opportunity to get some hands-on experience. Breads, cookies, fruit pies, vinegars, dry herbs, dry pasta, cotton candy, popcorn, chocolate-covered items. You can see these all have the same type of storage, right? They do not have to be refrigerated. They're not time temperature at all. They can be set out for any length of time. That's what potentially hazardous foods are, and that's why they're not included here, is that means they have to be refrigerated. They have to be time temperature controlled, either kept very cold or kept hot. These do not. These can be setting out at a booth for a farmer's market, any type of an environment like a farmer's market. It could be a craft show, something like that, where you want to just set out your baked goods, your candies, your fruit pies, and they will not in any way be contaminated or can't get bad, spoil in any way. Any questions on what can be covered? Yes.
Cake?
Cake, yes. Wedding cakes, birthday cakes, any type of special occasion cakes, cupcakes, yes.
As long as they don't have fruit on the top.
Right. They can't be garnished with any fruit.
Interesting.
Yes.
And I really like strawberry rhubarb pie.
Yes, those are delicious.
There you go.
Sweet potatoes? A sweet potato pie?
No.
No?
No, that is time temperature controlled, cannot.
Pickles?
No, not yet. We're hoping that it will be expanded to more of the pickles, the salsas, tomato-based products, but not as yet. Yeah, it is how they picked, and I don't know, do you know how they actually pick these?
Well, with pickles and canned foods, I know they have a lower acidity content, and because of the lower acidity, it's easier for them to get contaminated faster. And so it has to be in a certain pH range, and it has to undergo a certain processing. And some things they like, I don't know. I can't think of an example right now. But if something has to be cooked to X temperature for it to be completely cooked, and it's a really high temperature, then that's probably not on the cottage food list, just because there's a good chance that people might not cook it to that certain temperature that it needs to be at. So it's very specific as to these are the things that most people aren't going to mess up if they do it right.
They're not gonna kill anybody. You're right.
It's easier to make these things than.
Where would we go to find out about this?
Michigan Department of Agriculture website
Okay.
has some very nice, more than what I had printed out for you, but some very more specific information, more specific questions that people have asked and they've answered.
Okay. Could we get that website?
Yeah.
It's at the
I
end.
actually,
Okay, we've talked about this, it does not allow foods that require time and temperature, so that's why they've chosen the ones they have. It makes it much easier, you don't have to worry about you do have to do a plan of work, and we will talk about that, but when you're working with a lot of the acidic foods, like some you said, you have to do more charting and definitely more documentation, and pH levels and acidity levels, all of that has to be done, so this makes it much easier.
Your food products that have eggs or milk as part of their ingredients, they're baked, like your breads or your cakes that would have that as part of their ingredients.
but it's baked,
But it's baked,
Right.
is it okay?
yes, just fine. Mhm.
Yes.
Even though they have the eggs and the milk, they're baked, and so it's already been cooked. It's not a raw product at all. Good questions though, very good. The next slide is things that are excluded. And that would be the canned fruits and vegetables, butters like pumpkin and apple butter, and there is a question on the website that somebody was very confused as to why apple butter was not included. It's because it doesn't have the high sugar and pectin content as the fruit jellies do, and it's more softer and more susceptible to, the bacteria that could go into some of the hazardous foods. Canned pickled products, like I said, are not included. Milk, meat products, obviously, beverages, cut melons. Are you surprised by that? When you cut a melon, that means that, you know, it needs to be refrigerated within a couple hours. It cannot sit out being cut up like that. Pies require refrigeration, banana cream, pumpkin, sprouts, bean and alfalfa, and garlic and oil mixtures. Cannot be. Okay, any questions on that? Yes.
So if you're growing melons and you wanna cut something to serve as, or, you know, as a sample, can you not do that?
We're gonna go into samples, correct, you cannot do that. Correct. But we will go into how you can sample your, foods that are included in the food law, exactly. Advertising guidelines, which is very interesting, yes.
Sorry, I read something about like lettuces or something. I've read the Cottage Food Law before, and it had said something about selling lettuce or selling like leafy things.
Here's an example, you can grow basil in a garden and
Right.
sell basil.
Okay,
You can't chop it up into pesto.
okay,
You can't chop that leaf up,
okay.
because it makes it more amenable
So it's
to,
just cutting it, or
Yeah.
okay,
You can sell lettuce.
like a lettuce.
yeah.
A lettuce. Or salad mix.
Well,
No.
they're not a salad mix, but there are already laws in place for selling produce that you have grown that predates and is before all this, and you're able to do that.
Okay,
So you can grow lettuce and sell lettuce.
okay.
You just can't put it into a food product and sell it. Like taco salad, something like that, you can't.
Not under the cottage law.
Not under the cottage law, exactly, you have to go and get the license. Advertising guidelines, they're very, open about letting you advertise, you just have to remember you cannot sell through the internet, through websites, you cannot take orders over the phone, you cannot do mail orders. You can advertise your product and say, I'm going to be at this farmer's market on this certain day, and that's great. People will come and see you and you do your direct sales. You just cannot sell online, through the mail, over the phone, anything like that. Newspapers, flyers, however you want to promote your products. Only for marketing, okay? But it does give you a lot of flexibility in marketing your products. And if you do get involved in a market, a farmer's market, then you can get involved in whatever advertising they do also. So it gives you a lot of options.
In addition to that, it says directly from product to the consumer. So you can't sell to a store owner. I mean, that's directly selling to someone, but if they're gonna use your product to sell it in the store, that's not allowed. It needs to go directly from the person who makes it to the person who's going to consume it.
So you could not donate your food to some place that was going to sell it or raffle it off or give it away as a gift or prize. You cannot do that either. Food samples, we're gonna get into this a little bit. Non-potentially hazardous food, that's why they have guidelines for samples, is because you have to pre-package them at home. And that means a lot of times in our programs when we're going out to the public and doing our food demonstrations on healthy eating, we do not usually prepare the food in front of people. We usually are doing it in our kitchen, in our office, putting them in the container souffle, the little souffle dishes with the covers, wrapped individually in some way, and then taken to the site. That's how they have to be presented here too. You cannot cut up one of your banana breads and cut it up on a cutting board and leave the samples out for someone to sample. That is not part of the cottage food law. not allowed.
And I'm just gonna talk about the pictures a little bit. So the brownies that are cut up in the little containers, you cannot do that. It doesn't have a lid. It needs a lid on it when you sell it. So
Or wrapped
yes,
individually.
it needs to be completely covered.
And one thing when you're doing your samples is that you need to put the finished product in the proper wrapper with the label next to your samples. Because obviously you can't label every sample. But in this way, at least the people can see the label that is coming from the actual product itself.
So you can do Rice Krispie treats?
Yes, you can. Yeah, nothing hazardous about that.
What's the difference between the samples that you might get at Myers and these samples? I mean, how does the difference come into play?
They're licensed.
Different licenses.
These aren't licensed.
You remember the foundation of this is your home kitchen.
Okay.
So if you get sick from food at Myers, then you can go after them. Like,
Yeah.
really,
No, and
that's why.
I think it's a private company that does those
It is a
samples.
private company.
People are hired by a company to do those samples, so
And
yeah.
usually it's already a product that's already been approved,
Right,
that they've taken out of the package and warmed up, set on the grill or whatever have you, so that you can taste it.
And they're usually cooking it right in front of
Exactly,
you. A lot
right
of
in
times
front of
that's why
And you do hope they've gone through some food safety training.
they seem like they usually are.
Yeah.
They usually know what they're doing.
Yeah, you would hope, yeah. So, yeah, that's
You
the
would
difference.
hope.
You would hope. But you will also see at the farmers markets, and I have seen it through the Great Harvest Bread Company, that they will actually put their samples out. That's a whole different ballgame, because obviously they're making it in their own restaurants. But this makes it a little bit different. So to be creative when you're having your samples out there, you can find really neat things to put your food samples in that will create some attention to your booth. I mean, that's the whole idea, right, is to bring people to your booth, to sample your product, and to packaging is really important. Labeling guidelines, name and address of operation, that's also, I thought, very important part, so there is specifics on what goes on your label, because it really has to be, there is a strict guideline for what goes on the label, and I'll show you a sample label on the next slide. But name and address of the operation, it cannot be a post office box, it has to be an actual street address. Name of your product, ingredients in descending order, just like they do in Federal Food and Drug Administration. They ask you to do in descending order the ingredient that is the most in that product. Include your sub-ingredients. It gets a little tricky there if you're using some sub-ingredients like, give me an example.
Chocolate.
Chocolate, you have to tell what's in the chocolate, okay? You're gonna have to take that chocolate chip product and actually write down everything that's in those chocolate chips. That has to go on the sub-label. If you're using anything that's not a whole food, bananas obviously can go in there. Peanuts, if you're using that, needs to go on there as an allergen also. It contains peanuts and eggs. Net weight and allergen labeling. So you have to make sure you know. If someone comes up to your booth and it says, I'm allergic to peanuts, does this have peanuts in it? Does it have walnuts in it? You have to let them know what's in it.
So the label that's in our handouts on the white sheet on page 2-4, is this in ascending order as you have it up there? Yes, that's the one. Okay. So what's the difference between that one and the other one, or you have to have both?
I'm sorry, can you?
Do you have to have both labels, this label and the other label?
For the sub-ingredients?
Yes.
No, you can see in the enriched flour, it's in parentheses.
Okay,
That's what's in the enriched flours that I use.
okay,
So it just goes in parentheses, right,
okay.
but it is in descending order.
Okay.
Right. Chocolate chips, sugar, chocolate liquor, cocoa butter, butter fat. It just shows you exactly what has to be in it. Contains wheat, eggs, milk, soy, and walnuts. But it also at the very top has to have that statement, made in a home kitchen.
One thing I was curious about is, if you were to make something, and let's say you used a specific name brand product, let's say chocolate chips again. Do you have to put down that you used that specific, how,
No.
You could just say chocolate chips and have the ingredients that they have on the chocolate chips.
do you
on
have to contact the company and say you're selling? Okay.
You do not have to put the exact brand of chocolate chips that you use.
They want you to use it anyways.
Yeah.
That's kind of, tricky though if your products that you decide to make have a lot of ingredients in.
The weight. Let's say you're bagging up 6 cookies, and 6 cookies are not all going to weigh the exact same. So how do you address that?
You would have to weigh it out and actually have the proper weight on it.
Each individual bag.
Yes.
Well, you
Can you
would
write it
hope
on
that
there?
they would be.
Yeah, you can
close.
handwrite this. You don't have to type it. As long as it's legible, you can handwrite the entire ingredients list and everything on the package. As long as you have everything, all of these components on the package itself.
So your package of 6 cookies might weigh 3
4,
ounces,
yeah.
4 ounces, 3.5 ounces.
Mhm.
Everyone has to be weighed individually.
And do they
Every
have,
bag, but not every cookie, but every bag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Every bag.
and do they have to have the ounces and showing the grams?
I think as long as you have one type of.
Okay.
It's not
That way,
required,
yeah.
but sometimes people like to see that.
Yeah.
You can see the name and address are underneath. So, you have to do that very clearly.
Question?
Yes.
But we're not having to put down nutritional facts like you were showing in your
No,
labeling right now?
no, that's not necessary. We were just showing the label for the ingredient part. Not have to do that. It's nice if you have that opportunity to do that. More people are reading labels to see, but most of the time what you have is, you can't really figure out the nutrition in it anyway, so. But if you have that opportunity, you can. 6 common sense tips for selling your cottage foods. This is where we're going into the food safety aspect of it. You're cooking in your own kitchen. It makes a difference though when you're cooking for your family or you're cooking for the public. And that's why our program, I think, is really an important program for people, even though everyone probably knows what they're doing and they do a very good job in their own kitchens. It's more of an awareness and a reminder that you really do have to follow very strict food safety rules. You should do it anyway, but I have a lot of people who say, I'm just feeding my family. What difference does it make? It does make a difference to whoever you're feeding to make sure that the food that you're preparing is going to be safe. Good personal hygiene in your kitchen is really important. In making sure your kitchen is clean. Getting organized, making sure that you have all the ingredients you need, all the measuring equipment, all the packaging equipment that you need. Have a production plan, and that's something that we can branch off and do more of also, do some workshops on production plans and how to get one established. Store your products appropriately, we're going to talk about that. Obviously they can't be stored just anywhere. They need to be stored in your home in a dry, clean area, and transporting food in a clean vehicle. Making sure everything is covered and kept very clean.
I love you, I
Personal hygiene. We just need to go over this real basic, but make sure that you're talking about wearing clean clothes, clean aprons, all of that in your own kitchen. It's a little hard though when you're talking about having pets and children in your home at the same time that you're making this food. If your children are sick, they should not be around the food. If you have your pets, they should not be in the kitchen as you're making this food. Just a lot of reminders that maybe, when you're cooking your dinner at home, you're not thinking of. This case, it really needs to be thought about. And making sure that your health is going to be an important factor for everyone in the household that's surrounding this product. Washing your hands. We can't tell you enough about washing your hands. How many times throughout your process that you're making this food that you may be touching your hair, you may be, touching whatever, and not washing your hands in between. So we're really telling everyone to just keep making sure you're using paper towel, not the same hand towel over and over again, that you have plenty of paper towel to use, and that you're not always petting the dog and taking care of the kids at the same time as you're trying to bake and cook. Sonia likes this, so this is her slide, because it is really easy to do. Last night I did a food safety for a church on cooking for crowds, and we did our glow germ where you put the lotion on your hands and see how well they wash, and then show the black light. And I'll tell you, it's really easy to miss a lot of spots on your hands, especially your nails, up on your wrists. So it's very important that these areas are thoroughly washed, and anyone that's helping you with this production of food needs to know how to wash their hands properly. 4 steps to clean and sanitize. Remember, cleaning is not sanitizing. There's 2 different things. Cleaning just gets the crumbs and the dirt off the surface. Sanitize means you're actually gonna kill that bacteria that might be on that surface. Bleach, cheap, easy to use, and should be used an awful lot during this process. Common household sanitizers, and that's 1 teaspoon of bleach per quart of water. How to mix your bleach solution if you're, depending on what surface you're going to be cleaning, this gives you a little idea of food contact surfaces, food equipment. Everything has to be kept as clean as you can do. What gets cleaned and sanitized? Make sure you have cutting boards, any of your other equipment. Even when you're pulling drawers out, making sure the knobs are been sanitized. Anything that will be touched has to be cleaned and sanitized. Getting organized. Scales, very important to weigh whatever you're going to make. Thermometers, if you're baking anything like that, needs to have a thermometer. Get all your ingredients at one time. Don't stop in the middle and say, whoops, I forgot the eggs, and everything has to sit out until you go to the store. Food grade equipment, I don't know how much that has to be. I mean, as long as you're using well running equipment that's not rusty and worn out, make sure it doesn't, that it's working well. Clean your utensils. Food grade packaging, so make sure that whatever you're going to put your product in is made for food, not for sanitizers or cleaners in any way. Clean your produce, follow your recipes, list your ingredients, follow the baking procedures. For your product to be successful, for it to sell, it's got to be a good product, obviously, so it has to look nice, it has to be made and baked properly. And consistently, very good, Stephanie, you're right, so maybe all your pies will look alike, and so your cookies and cupcakes will all look all evenly. Prepare containers like jars and bottles. There's a lot of really nice decorative jars out now for jams and jellies that make it look nice. Make sure though that they're a ball or curve product, that they have the 2-piece lid and ring, not the nice decorative ones now that are only 1 piece. We do not recommend using those. I know they're nice, but they're not safe to use when you do your final processing. Is it okay to store food in an outdoor building?
How many of you think it's true? Raise your hands.
Good job. No, you cannot. Remember, it has to stay in the residence that you're cooking, that you made your food in an extra storeroom, an extra bedroom, whatever, where it has to be clean and dry and up off the floor. Store your product in a clean basement. Transport your food in a clean vehicle, not where your dog has been laying. References, this gives you the website. It also gives you ServSafe if you're more interested in